You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hey, mama friends, and welcome to another episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I am so pumped to introduce you to our guest today, Dana Inouye. Dana is an empowerment coach. She works with creative women and rebellious leaders who know they're meant for more, but are stuck in spirals of overthinking and people pleasing. She helps women connect to the bigger part inside of them, which she calls the inner wild, and seduce their dreams so they can show up bigger, emboldened, epically expressed, and anchored in their power. She's developed a groundbreaking rewilding process that merges mindset and embodiment and activates emotions. Her philosophy is we can't think our way to results, we've got to feel it. Besides all this awesomeness, she is a mama of four working it hardcore. Dana, I cannot wait for our conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to connect with you, always.
Yes, same here. All right, well, first things first, why don't you tell our listeners a little more about you and how you got started as an empowerment coach?
It started with not knowing what the fuck to do with my life. Isn't that how all things start?
Yes.
I think actually you and I met right around the time that I was sort of dipping, kind of like encroaching into the world of entrepreneurship and coaching and the online space. Right, we met like about 4 years ago, I think,
Yes.
in the online space. And that was like right where I was sort of beginning to forge my way into into the numerous evolutions that have taken me to where I am now. And I remember we connected in that space of being moms, of navigating the mess, and also being multi-passionate creative people who want to put things out there and create an impact. And I think my evolutionary process came from a place of being so deeply entrenched in the identity of motherhood. Like I just took it on completely, the magic and the mess. And also at the same time, sort of starting to starting to individuate from that identity that had like taken over into like, how do I make this my own? And who am I, both within and outside of motherhood? So I had just had kid number 4. I knew I didn't want to go back to teaching, and with baby on boob and feet perched on a mountain of laundry, I just started sharing my writing, sharing my thoughts and reflections, and in a very real, raw way, really about the trials and triumphs of motherhood, the way I experienced it. And then I also started exploring that intersection between motherhood and entrepreneurship, and started extracting lessons from one to the other, and just sort of sharing. He started building a community and sharing online, and saw that it really resonated with people. So I've always been a writer, a storyteller, a communicator. I've always loved playing with ideas. And one of the things I found myself doing as I communicated was that I found myself reframing and playing with paradox and putting a spin on the way we look at things and experience things. And that really resonated with people. And so I started coaching moms primarily. When I began, I started as a mindset coach working with moms. Many of them were also business owners and entrepreneurs. And so I really just loved kind of playing in that space of, in that overlap, that nexus of motherhood and entrepreneurship, and helping them open up to and really embrace just the the paradox that is motherhood and ease the juggle and find the magic in the mess. And that was my tagline for a long time, magic in the mess. So there was this one mom that I was coaching who was having issues with her toddler. And I remember talking to her about losing it, like losing our shit, right? Which is something the way I see it is something that is universal to moms, like the experience of just losing our shit with our kids, right? And we were talking about this idea of like anger and rage coming up and losing it. And I shared with her this perspective of giving permission, like giving ourselves permission, and also about the opportunity that exists in that messy space when we lose our shit. Like there's this raw space that in the way that I've experienced it so many times, there's this raw space that opens up when we sort of come undone, that allows something equally raw and powerful to enter on the other side of it. And so I remember we were talking about anger as a portal, as a throughway to tenderness, to awe, to love, to courage, and the only way really is through. And that conversation really shifted something for this mom in a really big way. And she ended up, she was also, she herself was a mindset coach and a business coach. And she ended up like reclarifying her, revamping her messaging and experiencing more ease and playfulness with her toddler and, and having her highest income month ever. So there was this nugget there that I didn't even know at the time. Now in retrospect, I'm able to sort of connect the dots. And I recognize this as like a really significant thread in leading me to this emotions-based empowerment coaching work that I now do, which is really about helping women connect to their power in a truly embodied way by tapping into the power of their emotions. So that was the one thread. And there's a couple other threads that I'll weave into the story. The second thread that's woven into this story is that I myself was working with a coach. I was working with a coach about a year and a half ago, and we were really working on this idea of purpose, like what is my purpose? And she had me do this exercise that's sort of a connect the dots exercise where I was asked to come up with moments in my life that jump out at me, right? And it could be anything. It's, it not necessarily like the best moments of your life, but just anything, any moment in your life that really jump out as that jump out as resonant, as memorable. And I did this exercise, and what became really clear to me in my experience of doing this exercise was that the moments that really stood out for me were moments where where there was like some sort of deep emotion, like where I was, whether it was like, whether I was in grief or whether I was in joy. There were moments where I was like feeling just sort of entrenched in some sort of deep emotion. And what became clear to me as I sort of started unraveling this is that those moments that were so memorable, they were memorable because something shifted. Something shifted on the other side of that experience. And I started to realize that the most transformational shifts that I've had came on the other side of some sort of emotional release. Whether it was rage to tenderness, like I talked about in the experience of motherhood, or, I had another experience where I was just immense grief. And on the other side of that release was this really powerful feeling of like, I've fucking got this. Like I am connected to my truth and I know how to move forward. And so with this sort of unraveling and unlocking of what these moments signify, I started to realize that there's so much There's so much power in both releasing and harnessing our emotions. And I started to ask myself, okay, how can we harness this? And why are we not doing this by design? And so I started playing in this space where, where magic in the mess sort of gave way to magic through our human mess, through our humanness and our human mess, and through taking the lid off the, you know, like the emotions, and really getting intimate with the mess of our emotions, of our wholeness. And by doing that, we really get to the core of who we are. And that is such an immensely powerful place to be. That was the second thread. And then the third thread that really kind of sealed the journey, and really anchored me into this work was just my own personal development journey that's so tightly woven with entrepreneurship. And along that journey, I began to notice that every time I would rub against rough edges of growth, like, those rough edges of my own growth. And when I talk about the rough edges of growth, I'm talking about self-sabotage and limiting beliefs, and all the conditioning that doesn't serve us. And every time I would come upon those sticky edges, the mindset just didn't cut it. Like, it helped, and I'm quite masterful at reframing, but I couldn't entirely mindset coach myself through the limiting beliefs. Thinking my way to results wasn't enough. I had to feel it, and I couldn't overcome my limiting beliefs from the same place that I'd created them. And so this is what really brought me to this place of embodiment. I actually did a mindset workshop that was led by a really prominent mindset coach. It was virtual. It was like 3 hours online on Zoom. It was great. It was wonderful. Anyway, I came up with a really empowering new narrative. And what happened was, though, I came out of the workshop, 3 hours later, came out of the workshop and just felt like, okay, I feel like I really like this new narrative that I've written, but I'm just not feeling it. Like, it sounds really good in my head, but I'm not feeling it. And I started, I just, this is also after 3 hours of sitting, so it felt really good to stretch and to move. And I started sort of like just moving around with this new, rewritten counter narrative in my head. And I started moving around with it. And all of a sudden, I could feel it just fitting better, like where before it was just sort of like draping over me, and hanging. And once I started moving it, it just started like enveloping my body and fitting in a really like snug way. And that was a huge aha for me, where I was like, okay, this is really juicy. And so I've started exploring more and more in that place where mindset meets embodiment, and realized that when our thoughts are when they're anchored in the body, they activate our emotions, and that really is the sweet spot. And for years I was an academic, and I was also a dancer, and I realize now the different value placement that I internalized that had to do with each of these different facets, each of these identities in my life, where academia was like, this is the serious, and this is gravity, and it's important, and dance was like, that's the fun, and it's the superfluous, and it's the fluff. And I started really sort of questioning this. And I feel like we're part of this patriarchal culture that premises the mind over the body and stillness over movement. And I started realizing that the crazy dance parties in the kitchen that keep me sane, that help me not only survive but thrive, that's the core. That's the energy activation. That's the emotion activation that makes such a huge difference in the way we live and approach life and approach our work and our relationships. The fluff is the core. That's that's the embodiment piece that really drew me deeper and deeper into this place of embodied inquiry, of embodied leadership, and that led me to develop this rewilding process that harnesses the incredibly powerful and underutilized resource of our emotions.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many things to add to this. I've been like taking it all in as you've been talking. So one thing I'll say is I'm a big
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of creativity, and I know,
Yeah.
I think we all know firsthand that the science shows that tends to dissipate as kids get older,
Yeah.
right? Like their childlike creativity tends to dissipate because from a societal perspective, we are valuing, like you said, the academia, right? The mind over the matter, like those kind of things. And it's so funny because the other day, my son, so we did an activity. They wanted to make vision boards. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So my one son hadn't finished his. And the next day he was like, well, I want to work on my vision board when we were like planning out our day and what we were going to get done. I'm like, well, you have to do your homework. Well, he goes, well, my vision board's more important than homework. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
like the grown up in me was like, you got to get your homework done, and I was like battling this internal internal battle, but
Totally.
I mean, he's
Totally.
right.
It's that aspect of playfulness that we lose through, through conditioning. And that's at the core of creativity, right? It's that it's that play.
Another thing you said that I want to comment on is about really experiencing emotion, and I don't just mean experiencing at a superficial level. Like you are like, no, get down with that shit, girl, right? So a mentor of mine once said, and I carry this with me through my life, day in and day out. She said, breakdowns are breakthroughs.
Yes, yes.
And I think this is so true, right? And whether that's a breakdown, like you're exemplifying in this conversation of like just losing your shit
Yeah,
with your kids, which does happen more frequently than I'd like,
yeah,
or a real, like, more intense one, maybe that has to do with your career path or, your relationship or and not that losing your shit with your kids isn't that serious, it is, but you know what I mean, like something that
yeah,
maybe happens a bit less frequently, you are
yes.
going to come out of that on the other side like so much more enlightened, so much more like
Yeah,
toxin free. I don't know how else to describe it, right? But you almost need to feel that slump, that crappiness to
yeah.
feel like the euphoria after it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like a range. Like I feel like so often we get stuck in living in this middle range, and when we expand one side, right, one end of the spectrum, we're also simultaneously expanding the other end of the spectrum, and that's how it is with our right with our emotional spectrum and our capacity to feel right when we give ourselves permission to to really be in the muck and to feel all the shit that comes up for us. We're also giving ourselves permission. We're at the same time expanding our capacity to feel all the joy and the bliss. And so it's really about giving permission for like our humanness. And there's two pieces. Like one is releasing, and the other is like the harnessing on the other side of that, because like you said, like our breakdowns are our breakthroughs, right? And it becomes a breakthrough when we're able to harness the gifts that it has for us, when we're able to harness the lessons and get curious about it, right? Get curious about those feelings and dialogue with them. So it's this dual sort of dynamic of releasing and harnessing,
Yeah.
um, and harnessing in a way that fuels us. And I I just want to come back to that beautiful phrase that you mentioned of like our breakdowns being breakthroughs, because I actually have this paradigm that I call it hatch not heal, and it's the same idea that we're like that we have to break open in order to break free, right?
Yeah.
And the premise is that we're whole, right? We are whole, and we have everything we need inside of us, and it's really about unlocking our essence, our magic, our power, and build just expanding that capacity.
Yeah, agree 100%. And I love that interpretation, hatch not heal. I really like I'm
Mhm.
visualizing it and I think it makes a ton of sense. So,
Yeah.
love it. All right. Well, Dana, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I actually don't know what rewilding is. And I imagine many of our listeners may not either. So tell us,
Yeah.
what is rewilding and how would you describe the quote inner wild that you talk about?
Yes. Well, rewilding is just sort of a cute name that I came up with. I was like, what is right? Yeah, I was, I remember just being, it was last summer, and I was like, like there's so much juiciness here. And I was in the midst of I was running, like doing a beta run of my program Fierce Free and on Fire, and it was like so amazing, and all these like shifts were happening for these women, and I was like, I need a name for this process. So rewilding is what I came up with. The reason I came up with rewilding is, of course, that reference to the wild, the inner wild, and the idea of like coming back, like sort of coming home to ourselves. Like I think the there for me is this idea of like of going inwards. So when I talk about the inner wild, it really is this. I mean, I think of it as the bigger part inside of you that's longing to be unleashed. That once you tap into it, has you showing up bigger. That's what I call your inner wild, and it's really about being freely, wholly, like unapologetically you, and feeling emboldened, like just emboldened and in your power and in deep trust in yourself. So it can look like connecting to your truth. It's tapping into your magnetic energy. It's self-sourcing your creativity. It's it's the fullness and the wholeness that is unlocked when you allow yourself to feel everything. So it's really the power that happens, like when we take the lid off the emotions and when we give ourselves permission to feel and to, like, again, like I was talking about, to release and to harness. And the way to do this, and I mean the way I guide women in this process, in this rewilding process, is really this this sexy dance between our shadow and our light. Like that's our wholeness, right? It's like we have these like vibrant lit up parts of us, and then we have these shadows that come up, like like our darker emotions, like fear and doubt and rage and grief. And it's really about playing, like just being in that space where we're playing with both of them, dancing with both of them, and being fully embodied and turned on by that fullness. And essentially, I've sort of broken it down into three pillars that are at the core of the rewilding process. So it's the three P's. I'm a total cheesy sucker for alliteration. So the three P's stand for pleasure, power, and possibility, and how they relate to one another. But I also want to add another layer here, another dynamic, and this is something that is really new and really exciting in my work. It's just sort of ripening, and it's something that I'm now bringing into the work, and it's so delicious, and it's just serving to anchor these pillars in a really deeply emotionally resonant way, and that is archetypes. So I'm starting to play with three goddess archetypes that I identify as the seductress, the sorceress, and the siren. And when we embody these archetypes, we really start to shift at an identity level into becoming fully expressed and in our power. So I want to weave the archetypes into the breakdown of the three P's. The number one is pleasure, right? That's the first P, is pleasure. And that's our light. And that's the seductress energy, right? The seductress awakens our pleasure. And this is all about remembering. This is about turn on, about desire. It's about the shit that lights us up. And the sensual and the sensory is where we connect to our feelings, our wild, our aliveness. And our aliveness is where our confidence and our magnetic energy is sourced. So in order to feel it, we need to turn on, we need to light up. And so that's really, like, pleasure is all about our light. And then number two, power. So the second pillar, power, that's where we walk on the dark side. This is the fertile soil of our shadows. It's all the darker emotions, and there is so much power in that shit. So this is where the sorceress energy comes in to activate and alchemize. And it looks like plunging into the rage, the fear, the grief, rather than bypassing, plunging into it and transmuting all that potent junk. And that's really where our deeply embodied power is sourced. So the sorceress activates our power, and she's about reclaiming. And then number three is sort of like the intersection. It's like the third space that's created when we give permission for all of it, when we dance with our light and our shadow. We get to this third space, which is really all about possibility. And it's this really magical space that opens up when we integrate the dark with the light in a way that is playful and spirited and just sacredly irreverent, like in a way that embraces the paradox. This is the expansive space of possibility that opens up when we approach the work from wholeness. This is where we practice mystery over mastery. This is surrender. This is ease. And so this is the siren who lures and attracts just by being heart wide open. She is about aligning and rising from that place. So pleasure, power, and possibility, as I see it, is the foundation for rewilding and for showing up as the freest, boldest, most magnetic version of ourselves, and really living into this ever expanding field of possibility. And the three goddess archetypes, the seductress, the sorceress, and the siren, they facilitate the path.
Okay. Pleasure, power, possibility.
Yeah.
Pleasure, power, possibility. It's also a tongue twister.
Yes. And seductress, sorceress, siren, try saying that one 10 times.
I'm gonna save that after the recording. Oh yeah, but I do love it, and I feel like it really nicely summarizes the the steps and the path that you're leading these women on. Absolutely. So Dana, we have a lot of goal diggers in our audience. Goal, not gold. So we all want to know, when it comes to slaying goals, how does this embodiment work help us?
Yeah. It's everything. It's everything. It is so,
Everything.
so key. So I do. I want to say just a few words about about the just about the word goals. It's funny because my son always laughs at me. I mean, he laughs at me for many reasons, but one of them is that he knows that I find this sort of like the concept of goals a little problematic. So he's always asking me, so what are your not goals? But so I just wanted to speak to that just for a moment, because it's this sort of mindset shift, paradigm shift that really speaks to the reason that embodiment is such a vital part of, slaying goals, if you will. Or as I would call it, sort of moving in the direction of our desires. So I remember a coach asking me like what my goal is, and in that moment I started thinking of what my goal is, right? And in that moment, I felt this like sort of constriction, like I just felt hard, and I realized in that moment that I was feeling this. I don't know. I was feeling this sort of like hard constrictedness because the goal felt so far. Like it felt like it was outside of me. It felt like it was out of reach. And so in order to reach it, I had to reach, like literally, like push and reach. And it just felt like it was coming, like it was distant and it was coming. And so I was coming at it from a place of lack. And so in that incident, that moment, led me to really reflecting on this. It was sort of this catalyst for this paradigm shift that I talk about, of seeding desires versus setting goals. And it's really sort of an inside out rather than an outside in approach, where we're kind of tuning into what's inside rather than the thing out there. And so we're moving from a place of abundance rather than lack, where we're like sort of self-sourcing rather than reaching. And to me, that just invites sort of, connecting to my desires in the pursuit of the thing that I want, in the thing that I desired, sort of invites a sense of softness and a measure of surrender and a measure of mystery. So, yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. But let me tie that into the relationship with embodiment. Let me ask you, Mama, where do your best ideas come from? What are you doing? Where are you? Where you are hit by inspiration?
Yeah. I would say two spots. Okay. So the first in the hot shower,
Yes.
and the second running or exercising outdoors,
Ah,
preferably, not just on the treadmill, like running
yes.
outside. Hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God. Those are like those are my two also. That's
Textbook
exactly what.
example. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so I call the shower my innovation incubator. Like the shower is my non-negotiable. Like, and because it's where I feel the flow. Like that's where the ideas are generated. And right, and yeah, and the other places where when I'm walking out in nature. Like sometimes I'll go take a walk, and I totally consider that part of the work, right? Like it's not the work is not sitting in front of my computer pushing and waiting for the ideas to come, because that just feels heavy, and that's going to lead me to burnout, and it's not sustainable. And I remember feeling early in my entrepreneurial journey that, like, oh, I have all these projects that I want to accomplish, and the way to do that is to just sit my ass down and do it. And there's a little bit of truth in that, but it's so limited, because when I force myself to sit down and do the thing, it feels forced and I'm uninspired, right? And I'm doing from a place of doing and not from a place of being. And when I take a walk, like that's where the ideas start generating. And then I can come back. And right, so that's the embodiment piece that is so key. And and I think we all like sort of know this, and yet like why are we not doing it by design? Like that is the work.
Yeah. And it's kind of going back to like, it shouldn't be this hard, right? If
Yes.
it feels this hard, we're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've recently been learning a lot more about the subconscious, versus the conscious mind. And I'm a pretty analytical gal. So
Hmm.
this is my development in action of learning more and being more
Yeah.
open-minded and accepting of these things. And I already have seen a shift in just getting
Mm,
more acquainted, getting more open, getting more, aligned energetically,
yeah.
that there are just so many things out there that you can't control and you have to
Mhm.
let go of. Otherwise, it does feel like hard as shit all the time and like you're going nowhere.
So
So you got to do the hard work. It's not to
yeah,
say that you could just lay there and vibe all day long, mama. You can't. But
totally.
but
But
you should be doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that to
yeah.
really feel that whole embodiment, like you're saying.
Well, and that's the thing that brings you into an energetic space of doing the work, right? It's this piece of alignment, right?
Yep.
That energetic, just tapping into that energetic space of feeling good, of feeling in surrender, of feeling, just those vibrations. That's where the work needs to come from.
Yeah.
And when it comes from that space, it just is it's a whole other level.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And if you're listening right now thinking like this shit's woo woo,
Yeah.
guys, don't knock it till you try it. All the successful people out there do this shit. I'm telling you. Like
I
all
know.
the successful people are in touch with their energy, with their alignment, with their internal selves. This is going to
Yeah.
institute so much confidence in you. It's going to make you worry less. It's going to make you stress less. This
Yeah.
is important work to do.
Yeah. And know this. I like if you had asked me 4 years ago, like if you said to me 4 years ago that I'd be like here talking about energy, I would be like, what the fuck? It's so funny. Like I never, I would like hear about people like energy practitioners, healers, and I'd be like, what the fuck is that even?
And now you're teaching it.
Oh
Yes.
my God. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, and it's taking you places and you're seeing firsthand how it's taking other moms places, and I love
Yes.
that. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, Dana, we got to move on to our lightning round. I wish
Right.
we could talk about energy all night long here, but we got to move on to the lightning round. Are you
Woo!
ready?
Okay, hit me. Well, yeah. I'm like,
Ready or not, it's happening.
ready or not, it's happening. I'm like totally like nervous, but I am. Woo, I'm ready to flirt with that fear. Bring it on.
All right, I love it. Another alliteration from you. Love it. All right.
It's a process that I use. It's yeah. Go for it.
All right. What is your go-to get shit done song?
Oh my God. My most recent one is "Level Up" by Kiara.
Sierra.
Ciara. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even know her name, but
That's a
I
good
have
one.
I have so many others though. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my
No, that's a good one. That's a good one.
yeah.
All right. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I think I'm an extrovert, even though I love having time to myself also. But maybe that's just a function of being a mom.
Yeah, and I think being a mom of four, you just like you do value that alone time a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Calories don't count.
Oh my God, green grapes.
Green grapes. Okay. I like how you said that so confidently. Like you didn't have to think about it. You were like,
Yeah.
nope, green grapes. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, what is your guilty pleasure TV show?
My guilty pleasure TV show. It was Queer Eye. It was Parenthood, and now I'm in need of a new guilty pleasure TV show. So please, um, give me suggestions.
Okay. When this episode airs, guys,
Yeah.
comment on the Instagram post with what you recommend
Yes,
Dana should watch
please.
next. Okay. All right. Well, before we wrap up, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
I'm ridiculously active on Facebook, and my kids will tell you that's because I'm old. So you can find me there, my personal page, Dana Inouye. I also have a group called Rewild Collective. I'd love to have you in there. I'm also on Instagram, Dana_Inouye, trying to keep an Instagram presence. I'm just getting into stories. I haven't yet gotten into reels, which I know you are a fucking rock star reel mom.
Oh, we got to get you into
I'm
reels.
like,
You because you're like a dancing queen. You would
yes,
have so much fun with that shit.
yeah, I am a dancing queen. And I just need someone to like, I need like tech support. I need massive tech
I got you,
support.
girl. And I got a good resource for you too.
Awesome. Yeah. And so those are the places where you can find me. And I have a gift. Can we add a link? A
Yes,
for your listeners?
absolutely. What is the
Actually,
gift?
so yeah. Speaking of dancing queen, I've put together 3 playlists that are like that help you just like release and rise. So there's a sad, there's a like rage, angry playlist, and then there's like the diva dance playlist.
Love it.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Like I've just realized the power in moving through these different emotions and releasing them and getting to this like potent place of expansiveness on the other side is so juicy. So I'm thrilled to be able to share this gift with your listeners.
Thank you. Yes, we will link that in the show notes, and I can't wait to listen myself.
Yay.
All right, Dana. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. It has been so much fun chatting.
It was so much fun for me as well. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, If you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, Mama.